So you think you want to record your own audiobook. In this video, I'm going to show you how I did it and how you can do it just as cheap and hopefully a little bit quicker. I began my audiobook journey with blog.readsy.com's guide, which suggests researching the process of booking a recording studio, hiring a professional audiobook reader or voice actor, etc. Due to price concerns, I decided to be the narrator, voice actor, and record in my own house. The numbers. I created my audiobook for about $160 and it took me about 200 hours. My novel is 100,000 words and the audiobook recording ended up being just under 11 hours long. My main challenge was in the time commitment, not the money commitment. However long it takes you to read a chapter in your book, plan on double, triple, or quadruple that to record it. Plan on triple through quintuple that to edit the resulting product. So if I can read a chapter in 15 minutes, then it may take me 45 minutes to record it and 90 to 180 minutes to edit that file. These numbers can go down with practice, but I found that they went up again as my standards got higher. Considerations. Are you truly prepared to record your own audiobook and edit it? External sounds are a major concern. Everything from a dog barking anywhere in the neighborhood to someone leaf blowing, mowing their lawn, a plane flying overhead, other people just talking or moving around, even on the far side of the house. A good microphone is going to pick up these sounds. You need to consider where you're going to record. I moved a bookshelf in front of a closet and hung up wool and blankets to deaden the sound. I figured a bunch of hung up clothes would work well enough for sound deadening, and it did work for me. You can also use foam and or egg cartons or get one of these microphone sound isolation cages. The purpose of this is to eliminate that echoey sound of a hard-walled room. It's not going to prevent external sounds like the car driving by or the airplane flying overhead. Equipment. You're going to need a decent microphone. The microphone was my primary expense, in some respects my only expense. I googled best microphones for recording audiobooks and found that the best is over $3,000, but that the best of the rest is much lower. I used websites such as audiobookaddicts.com and selfpublishingresources.com. Links to all of my notes and video resources are in this video description. Pretty much everyone agrees that for the price, the Blue Yeti USB cannot be beat. There are better microphones, there are cheaper microphones, there are not better, cheaper microphones. Here's a quick comparison of the 5 microphones that I own. Rural Juror, Sludge, Slipped. Wars, as a rule, fall within the compass of history. Rural Juror, Sludge, Slipped. Wars, as a rule, fall within the compass of history. Rural Juror, Sludge, Slipped. Wars, as a rule, fall within the compass of history. Rural Juror, Sludge, Slipped. Wars, as a rule, fall within the compass of history. Hopefully it's obvious that that last one, the Blue Yeti, which is the one I used, is the best. I went on Amazon and got the whole kit, including Blue Yeti microphone with Knox boom arm stand, pop filter, and shock mount bundle for $160. Here's what you get with that. Pop filter, so I don't pop those peas too hard. Shock mount. It's sort of a little cradle that holds the microphone. The microphone itself. It feels very solid. It's got a heavy bass. And lastly, the boom arm. I wanted to record standing up. I felt like it would open up my lungs better. I've seen recordings of voice actors who record standing up, and so I just assumed that was a thing. One of the things that definitely drew me to the Blue Yeti was the ease of setup. It's got a very solid bass. You just sort of rotate the microphone in the direction you want it. And there's a regular USB cord that plugs into the base of the microphone and then just any USB slot on your computer. It's a fairly long cable, which is good because I needed to snake around this bookshelf. I'm about 6 to 8 feet away from my computer where I'm recording. There's the USB right there, and the other end just plugs into the bottom of the microphone. It's all nice and easy, plug and play. In fact, the directions for this thing are hilariously simple. It's basically just like, yeah, plug it all in, and then there's an icon over... Nope, I know which finger is which. Then there's an icon over here, speak into the microphone, in case you didn't know that part. The boom arm was a little more complicated to put together than I anticipated, mostly due to the fact that it doesn't come with instructions. The C-clamp slides into the back of the conical base. The base just has an opening in the back where you slide the clamp right in. You just push them together. The arm has a cylinder that you shove down into the top of the cone. There were some Velcro ties I took off already so I can open it up if I want to. The shock mount screws onto the other end of the arm. There was an opening and it just fit right in. 2 other bags were included with other screws and fittings in case you're attaching to various other models of boom arm, but I didn't need those. It screwed right in for me. Next, I put the mic into the basket here. The mic comes out of its stand and goes right side up into the mount. There's a circular opening on the bottom of the mic that can be screwed right in. So take the mic in its original stand and unscrew these 2 little Frankenstein screws here, lefty-loosey on both. Mic comes right on out. There's a screw on the bottom of the mount. Mic screws down right into it. Tighten the screw from the bottom while gently applying pressure on the mic from the other side. A few more screws throughout need tightened to keep the arm in position, but otherwise that's it. Clamp the bottom to your desk or other surface and you're good to go. The microphone is relatively easy to use, but I still had to learn some terminology to understand what the instructions meant. There are 3 knobs on the Blue Yeti. There's the volume, gain, and pattern. The gain is how much the mic picks up. It's basically the sensitivity, at least that's how I think of it. The volume is how loud the microphone is going to output what it does pick up. And then there's pattern. And I don't fully understand pattern, but everybody says that you use the cardioid or heart-shaped pattern for audiobook recording. The best way to get a sense for your microphone settings is just to try them out. To plug a good set of headphones into the audio jack on the bottom of the microphone, put it on, and then speak into it and adjust the settings and listen to those results. Note that this is also how you're going to want to read the book. You're going to want to be wearing some nice headphones that are plugged directly into the microphone so that you can hear what you sound like as you're speaking. I used a pair of Bose noise canceling headphones. They're not super expensive, but they're pretty high quality. Again, kind of like the microphone. They're like the best you can get for the price, I would say. The one setting that surprised me the most was the gain. This microphone is incredibly sensitive, and it's not that expensive. Turning up the gain, I felt like I was hearing butterflies flap their wings outside. Okay, that's an exaggeration, but nonetheless, the gain is real powerful. I ended up, and I'll get more into all my detailed settings as this video goes, I ended up using the minimal gain. I turned that knob as far down as it would go. You can learn more about these settings at playthetunes.com/Blue Yeti settings. It's blue-yeti-settings. There are other excellent resources like this guy's video here. Links in this video's description. But next I want to talk about computer software setup. Thankfully, there are excellent free audio recording and editing software tools available. I used Audacity. I'm going to show you my entire process so that you can use it too. First, go ahead and download Audacity. See how good my microphone is? Picks up the dog barking. Audacity. I recommend downloading Audacity and playing around with it before you start recording so you can figure out if you're up to doing all this editing. Download Audacity from audacityteam.org/download. It's a fairly simple install, so I'm not going to cover that right here. Audacity has a support page specifically dedicated to audiobook recording. It's a very useful resource. I'm going to walk you through it here. Navigate to the support page, and then scroll down to the Install the ACX Check plugin. This plugin will determine if your audiobook files meet ACX standards. ACX is the big dog when it comes to audiobooks. It's Amazon, but trust me, if you're going with a different distributor, your files need to meet these standards regardless. You can learn more at acx.com. Click on ACX Check, then click to download acxcheck.ny. There it is in my downloads folder. Next, get a plugin for normalizing your audio. As I understand it, normalizing makes all your louds equally loud and all your softs equally soft. Back on the Audacity support page, we want to get a normalization plugin. Unfortunately, that link is dead, so we're going to this forum post instead, link in the video description. Scroll down to the latest version and download rms-normalize.ny. Instructions for installing plugins can be found back on the support page. See Installing Nyquist Plugins. We've already downloaded the plugins, so open Audacity and go to Tools, Nyquist Plugin Installer. Browse to the plugins, mine are in my downloads folder. Click Open, then Apply, then OK. Then restart Audacity. You gotta close it and open it back up. We can confirm a successful installation by opening up Audacity and navigating to the following. ACX Check should now appear at the bottom of the Analyze tab. RMS Normalize should now appear at the bottom of the Effect tab. All right, so you've got the plugins installed. Next, let's get set up all your Audacity settings. You're going to go to Edit, Preferences, Audio Settings. You want to use mono for audiobook recording, not stereo. Go to Edit Preferences Recordings. Make sure that Detect Dropouts is checked. Nothing else should be checked in that menu. Go to Edit Preferences Quality. Set these options to the highest quality. Go to the Transport menu, and then Transport Options. Uncheck Software Playthrough, uncheck Overdub, in other words, turn it off. In fact, just make sure all your transport options are off, unchecked. Go to the View menu and turn Show Clipping on. This allows you to clap close to your microphone to get a red line to appear in the recording so that you can identify and fix mistakes. Another option you should play around with is under Transport and then Transport Options, the pinned play/record head. This determines whether, as your audio plays, the currently playing audio stays right in the middle of the screen with like the whole thing scrolling by, or there's a little bar that moves across showing you what's playing, and when it reaches the edge of the screen, the next set of audio sort of snaps into position. It's more like turning a page rather than scrolling.
Tapalisk had been in the same game for a year. Tapalisk had been in the same game for a year.
I ended up going back and forth on this and never really could settle on which was easier for me in terms of editing. Sometimes I really wanted the audio that I was looking at to be in the middle of the screen, but other times I needed to see more of what came before or more of what came after. You should try it both ways and figure out what matches your personal editing style more, because it really does make a difference in your quality of life. But for me, I found that sometimes I wanted the one option and sometimes I wanted the other, and so I never quite settled on it.
So the first thing I always did after I recorded a clip is that I exported it as a WAV file, WAV. To select the clip to export, you can either type Control-A to select all, or you can click on this bar here at the top of the recording. Although the file sizes are quite large, this format is what's known as lossless. It preserves all the information that was recorded. There are a variety of processing steps that should be applied to every clip you record, so it's convenient to set up what's called a macro to do all of those steps in sequence with the click of a button. I'm going to briefly show each of the effects individually, and then I'm going to show you how to create the macro. So the first thing we want to do is we want to go to Effect, EQ and Filters, Filter Curve EQ. Oops, it's telling me that I didn't select my clip, so I got to select the clip. Go back to that again. Effect, EQ and Filters, Filter Curve EQ. Presets and settings, factory presets, and we're going to select low roll-off for speech, and then click apply. The next processing step is to normalize, again in effect, second to last at the bottom, RMS normalize. Target RMS level is -20 decibels, and then click apply. The next step is again under effect. Go to volume and compression, and then limiter. Now, the Audacity audiobook support page says that you're supposed to limit to -3 decibels for the limit to dB, the third box there. But ACX standards say that it should be 350. I set mine to -3.20, and that worked just perfectly for me. So I think that's a good setting, but there seems to be a little bit of disagreement about that. Finally, go to the Analyze menu and run the ACX check at the bottom to make sure your file meets ACX standards. According to ACX technical requirements, you're supposed to have a peak of -3 decibels, RMS between -23 and -18 decibels, and a noise floor of -60. Now, what I found was that just being close to these values, everything was perfectly fine. However, the first time I tried to record, even after running these settings, I was not getting the RMS numbers that I needed. My fix for that problem was to reduce the gain on the microphone, to literally turn that gain value down from, I had it about at 70%, down to the minimum setting. Now, I do think it's worthwhile to have shown you sort of manually where to find all of those options, but what we're going to do is we're going to set up this macro that's going to perform all of those processing steps, including the ACX check at the end, for us with the single click of a button, so that we don't have to do that for every single chapter that we record for our audiobook. To set up a macro, go to Tools, Macro Manager, and then you can click New to create a new one. I'm showing you here the macro that I created and used on all of my audiobook clips. To run this macro, you select the audio clip and then go to Tools and Apply Macro, and you select the macro that you want. In the time since I went through this process, a complete macro text file has been created and uploaded to the Audacity support page for audiobook mastering. Under Process, scroll down to Audiobook Mastering Macro.txt. Now, I couldn't figure out how to download this file, right-clicking on it, left-clicking on it, anything. So I just opened it up and then literally copied it into a new text document using Notepad. So once you've got it saved into a text file, go back into Audacity, Tools, Macro Manager, Import, and then navigate to the file and select it and import it. I decided to add the ACX check to the end of the macro because it did not have it included. So you just go to Insert, select ACX check, and then I use the Move Down button to move the ACX check to the end because I want to do the ACX check after the other processing. And again, here's what it looks like to run that macro. Do more test recordings. Listen to what it sounds like before running the macro and after it, or even before and after applying particular settings. Getting comfortable with Audacity and with what the settings do is going to benefit you in the long run if you do it up front. And after that, do a trial run of an entire chapter, just one chapter from start to finish, from recording it to audio perfection, before moving on to the rest of the chapters. Now, you're not going to do this for the whole book. I do recommend that after you feel comfortable, like, okay, I can do this for one chapter, that you then just record the whole thing and then do all of your editing as well. You're going to speak perpendicularly into your microphone, like you're licking an ice cream cone, not like you're eating a hot dog. Normally, I would have my pop filter between myself and the microphone, but I just needed to move it off to the side to get this on camera. To reduce the popping of your P's and other hard sounds, speak slightly off to the side of the microphone rather than directly towards it. About a foot and a half of distance is what I found to be effective. Pace your reading as you're recording. There's a big temptation to speed up. Listen to other audiobooks. See how the professionals do it.
Touches of the Urukai. It was his duty to wait upon the Lord, and wait he did. Forgotten it seemed, standing by the door of the unlit chamber, mastering his own fears as best he could. And as he watched, it seemed to him that Denethor grew old before his eyes.
They couldn't stay current and compete if they didn't go co-ed. But the battle had been hard won, and the headmaster, Taylor Houghton IV, was one of the last to be convinced of its benefits.
We don't like yellow and red lights. No, they slow us down or stop our flow. They're hard. They're a shoeless winter. They say no, but sometimes give us what we need.
Take regular breaths and partially exhale before speaking. You don't want to read like your chest is full of air to bursting, but you also don't want to breathe as if you're on your very last bit of air. I have a lot of allergies and various problems breathing, so I read with a Breathe Right strip on my nose or even occasionally a nasal dilator. I recorded while standing up to improve my posture and more easily expand my chest. Have water on hand for your reading. I live in a desert and I felt my throat was getting dry very, very often. I would take regular, just little tiny sips of water. Also, the drier your mouth is, the more you're going to be making these poppy, clicky noises in your mouth that are a real pain when it comes time to edit. If some noise pops in from the background or you screw up a sentence or whatever, just re-record from the top. Just go back to either the top of the sentence or the top of the paragraph and read it on through. Don't stop the recording and try and edit it out there. Just move on ahead. Get that whole chapter done in one reading. Some people recommend snapping or clapping to get a vertical red line that'll show up in Audacity just to show them where they need to edit something out. I didn't find that to be either necessary or helpful because I really wanted to listen to my whole clip from start to finish and make sure there weren't any little tiny sounds that had slipped in without me noticing. So I was doing a very thorough edit. I wasn't just going back to particular points that I marked. But I don't know, maybe that's because I'm an amateur at this and I was screwing up more. Do a practice read of whatever chapter you're about to record without recording it. You can even read it silently, though I recommend that you sort of mouth along to the words. One simple but easy to overlook benefit of this is that you need to identify words that you may not know how to pronounce. It turns out that at the very least, I'm willing to write, but I don't actually know how to pronounce, or at least I was a little unsure. Simulacrum, retinue, flotsam, amalgamation. I'm not an actor. I'm not trained as an actor, but here are my acting tips.
Figure out something consistent to do for each of your characters. For instance, I would always read Fife with a bright, open face, with a smile, my cheeks pulled up, because she is a bright, open character. Beryl I would always read with a bit of a growl, and sort of out of one side of my mouth. Dick Cheney meets Harrison Ford. Nesh is eyebrows up, but mouth hanging down, sort of like a sad puppy, an innocent character. Ontzi is the paranoid, gossipy neighbor who's always spying on everyone else. She has sort of a pinched feel to her. Reading can be the most fun part of this exercise, so enjoy it. Get into the mood of each sentence. Spooky sentences get a bit of a spooky reading. Happy sentences are read with joy. I'll link to some more videos with some great advice on voice acting in the video description. One key takeaway from one of the videos that I really liked was, don't exaggerate gender differences wildly. Men, don't read women in falsetto. Women, don't read all men like Gimli the dwarf. Unless you're going for that sort of exaggeration, obviously. But typically, if comedy is not the goal, we don't want to read all the women like we're Monty Python in drag. Any takes that you want removed or any background noise, what you need to do is you need to copy and paste background silence, in air quotes there, over any sound rather than truly erasing it down to zero. Dead silence actually sounds weird and it will cause you to fail the ACX requirement standards. So instead what I use is this handy tool called Punch Copy and Punch Paste. Now this is from another plugin. You go to this webpage right here, link in the video description. Download it and use the Nyquist plugin installer again to install both the Punch Copy and the Punch Paste. To verify that it works, go under the Effects tab at the very bottom. It says NA. Now, there's typos. It actually says Punch Copy and Punch Paste, but it works, and it is the thing you want, and it's actually quite great. So from there, I copy some room silence. Now, what I typically try and do is right before I'm ready to record the chapter, I will make sure everything is silent. I will snap my fingers once, let it play out like 3 seconds of silence, snap my fingers again, highlight that section of silence, go back to that effects menu, NA, Punch Copy or Punch Copy. And then anything that you want silenced, just highlight over it on the clip, Chapter 1. Chapter 1. And then go back to Effects, NA, Punch Paste. And it will paste as much of that silence as it needs to cover up whatever you selected. The selections do not need to be the same length. If the selection is longer than whatever you copied, then the copied silence will just be repeated. And good news, you won't have to go through that menu every single time. Go look at the effects menu. Whatever your most recent action is, you can repeat it using Control-R. You want to learn this shortcut and other shortcuts because you're going to be doing a lot of editing. The other main shortcut that I use all the time is spacebar to play and then spacebar to pause. So you can just stop and go as much as you need to with spacebar, select something with the mouse, Control-R to paste silence over it. Not true silence, but background noise, room silence. You can always check your little decibels meter right there and see how high it is. You can see where my room silence is at, and you can also see some of the noises that I'm copying over are a little bit higher. You might very reasonably think that you want to delete stuff that you need to remove, takes that you didn't like, or background noise or whatever. But Audacity can do all of that for you at the end after you have copied silence over top of stuff you don't want. We're going to go back into the Effects tab under Special and then Truncate Silence. What this will do is detect stretches of silence above whatever you set your value to be. I used 0.9 seconds. I don't know, that just felt right to me. I tried to compare to some audiobooks that I listened to. A lot of them even let their silence run longer, as long as like 1.5 seconds, but that felt really slow and tedious to me, so I don't know, 0.9 worked for me, and that's what I used. Set both of the values to 0.9, set the limit to -20 decibels, it doesn't go any lower than that, and then select your whole clip, click the Truncate Silence button, apply,
and every stretch of silence longer than that 0.9 seconds will be shortened down to 0.9 seconds. So very handy, especially after you've pasted silence over everything that you want to remove. You can always run a later truncate to make the gaps even shorter, so you might try shortening them to like 1.5 seconds or whatever length you want, because you can always just run it and shorten it down shorter. But making them longer again, yeah, good luck with that. Next, I put in 1.5 seconds of silence at the start and end of each chapter. You can also adjust this to taste. You're supposed to have a little bit of silence at the beginning and ending of each chapter, although I got contradictory advice online about how much you should have. Certainly there seems to be agreement that it's possible to have too little, but you can definitely have too much because your reader might think that they didn't actually press play when they did if your audiobook doesn't start for 6 seconds. So anyway, I settled on 1.5. That worked great for me. After removing bad takes and background noise, I do a completely separate pass-through of editing to repair mouth noises. These are the little like clicks and squelchy noises that your mouth just happens to make because there is fluid in it and you're moving your tongue around in there. This step is by far the most tedious editing step, but I felt that it was necessary to get the quality that I wanted in my audiobook. Mouth noises sound like this. Alone. I was alone. Or this. More thrilling than Nesh's. That felt even more thrilling than Nesh's touch. Or this. The frown had disappeared from their face. Frown had disappeared from their face. And they look like the following if you're zooming in on your audio clip. By the way, I zoom in or zoom out by scrolling my mouse wheel. Some of these mouth noises appear at the very start or very end of a sentence, and you can just punch copy, punch paste silence over those. But other mouth noises are going to occur right in the middle of a word. For these, you want to zoom in and find that tiny little offending bit of noise. If I was alone, highlight it and only it, and then go to Effect, Noise Removal and Repair, and then click Repair. And you can see what it does. It sort of tries to smooth out the jagged shape of that mouth noise. I was fairly perfectionistic about trying to remove these mouth noises as much as I could, but I did do a little test where I listened to my audio clip not with my fancy headphones, but just like playing out of speakers in my house. And a lot of these mouth noises, you couldn't hear them at all, or they were much less noticeable. So that's a good thing. But, you know, some of your listeners may want to use quality headphones. So again, I was super picky about this in my own audiobook. And as a result, it took me a really long time to edit this stuff out. Now you might think that surely there's some sort of broad processing that we can do to remove all these clicks. I mean, they have a fairly distinctive waveform when we're looking at the audio. There is, but I found that it also introduced occasional little artifacts and glitches into other parts of the audio, and I was not willing to tolerate that. But I don't know, if you want to see that sort of broadly applicable tool, you can highlight the whole clip and then go to Effect, Noise Removal and Repair, and select Click Removal instead of the Repair tool. And the Repair tool, by the way, it only works on very, very brief clips. If you select too much time, the Repair tool will not function properly, and it will give you an error message telling you that you need to select a shorter bit of audio. Another trick that I tried to broadly remove all of these little clicking noises is that I selected one of the sounds that I wanted to remove and then went to Effect, Noise Removal and Repair, Noise Reduction, and clicked Get Noise Profile. And then I selected the entire audio track, went back to Effect, Noise Removal and Repair, Noise Reduction, and clicked OK. I did have to then also rerun my macros after that. But again, just this broadly applicable click reduction didn't give me the overall quality that I wanted. So I ultimately gave up on that, and I did edit these out by hand. Now, maybe there are other tools out there that I missed. Please, certainly if I ever do this again, if you know of anything, put it in the comments below. There's a lot of software that makes promises to like use AI to improve your audio. Listen, I tried, Podcastle is one thing I tried. That's Podcastle, Castle. But honestly, it didn't have anything that Audacity didn't also have for free and possibly better. So I was not able to find a broadly applicable solution to this, an automatic solution to these mouth noises. If there is one, let us all know in the comments, because honestly, that could cut tens of hours at least off of your editing time, if not cut your editing time in half. The repair tool works great most of the time, but occasionally it leaves behind an artifact or doesn't repair the mouth noise. What you can do in this case is transplant a sound wave that has the correct shape over top of the noise. So here I identified a click. You can see the jagged shape there. Then I found a wave that fit the profile of what should fit in that location. I punch copy the transplant, highlight the click, and punch paste over top of it. The sound wave curves fit smoothly together. Always do an audio check, of course. Fife stood on the crest of a ridge, looking. I'm concerned that some presentation of the editing steps got out of order compared to how I actually did it. So let me just lay out my editing workflow exactly as I eventually discovered, okay, I think this is the best way to do it. First off, of course, save your unprocessed draft. Always save drafts. Second, apply your macro. Third, go through and copy room silence over any takes that you don't actually like. So versions of the reading that you decide, nope, I have a better version of that. Copy room silence over those. Consider also copying room silence over the noises between sentences, but maybe do that on a later draft. Don't get into editing out mouth noises and perfecting individual sentences. Not until, preferably a later draft, and certainly not until you've figured out that that is the sentence that you actually want to keep in the final version of your audiobook. After that, save a draft. I've lost count of which step we're on. Do another revision pass, and in this one, you're actually going to repair those mouth noises. This is the most tedious editing step when you're editing out those mouth noises. Save a draft after that editing pass. Now things are easier. Run a truncate silence over the entire audio file. That's automated. Truncate that silence, the gaps between sentences and paragraphs, to whatever you think is appropriate. I used 0.9 of a second. Why that particular value? It just sounded right for me. At this point, you should also insert 1.5 seconds of room silence at the beginning and end of each chapter. At least 1.5 is what I used. Again, you can adjust that to your preference. Save that draft, and then congratulations. At that point, you're probably done. Once I thought I was finished recording and editing, I did one final listen through of the entire audiobook, and I found that my skills as an audiobook reader, as well as my editing skills, had improved over the course of the process, which was good, but I didn't like the way the earlier chapters sounded in comparison to the later chapters. And I ended up re-recording those. It was a lot of extra time commitment, but I felt that it was important to do for the higher standards that I ended up having at the end of the process rather than at the beginning. I also ended up inserting a few, let's call them dramatic pauses throughout. The truncate silence tool that I used makes every single gap between sentences or paragraphs the same length, or at least have a maximum of that 0.9 seconds that I chose. That didn't always sound right to me rhythmically, so I inserted a little bit of extra silence between some sentences, just in places where there was a little bit more of a gap or a pause in the action, or where there was a separation that I wanted to denote, scene breaks in particular, as well as smaller separations. I noticed a few things that I didn't catch in the first pass. One of my chapters had a dog bark in the background, so I had to re-record a section for that. I found that when you were re-recording just a section, and then when you wanted to insert that section into the larger audiobook chapter, you need to run your macro on the part that you're inserting before you insert it. Also, I ran into this error. It said insufficient space in track. There is not enough room available to paste the selection. If you run into a similar error, what you need to do is you need to go into Edit, Preferences, Track Behaviors, and turn on
editing a clip can move other clips. That fixed the issue for me, and then I was able to paste in the selection that I wanted to insert into the other chapter. That was not the only partial re-record that I did. This is a very challenging thing to do because just on a different day, you are going to read a chapter with a different tone of voice, with different emphasis. And inserting one of those sections from a recording on a different day can be very noticeable, I found. Of course, listening to the original chapter and trying to mimic and get into that voice that you had will help, but I found that sometimes my standards, and there was a struggle with perfectionism throughout, sometimes my standards required me to re-record an entire chapter because I'd messed up some little paragraph in the middle. All right, but eventually you make it, you're almost to the finish line. How do you actually sell your creation? You need to create an ACX account. This will allow you to sell through Amazon, Audible, and iTunes. You enter your bank account information. You enter information about your already published Amazon book information. You upload, of course, your audio files. And then within 1 week, the audiobook is available for sale.
I'm going to show you around the ACX web interface as well as the Findaway Voices interface. I didn't find either of these to be entirely intuitive. For ACX, you can log in with your existing Amazon account username and password. After that, you'll need to fill in personal information and read through the account holder agreement. Click to start your audiobook. Assuming you've already got your book for sale on Amazon, the next step is to select the book that you're creating an audiobook for. You can outsource an audiobook narrator through ACX. I chose not to do that. Next, choose to go exclusive or not. Amazon really screws you over royalty-wise if you don't go exclusive, but f*** this horrible company. I'm already exclusive with my ebook. I'm not also going to be exclusive with my audiobook. There's another massive legal agreement to get through. Then you fill in your book blurb, like what the back cover of the book says, something to entice readers, or in this case, listeners. Fill in more book information. Next, you list out all your chapters, and the site shows you the recommended naming conventions. I imported the table of contents from the Kindle book and then edited it to fit the recommended formatting. At this point, I still need to put in tax info, bank info, cover art, and of course upload all the files. Click here to put in tax info, click here to put in bank info, but where the hell do I go to actually upload the audio files? You have to click on projects at the top. More than once, this projects page did not load for me. It just showed up as blank, and I had to completely close my browser and log in again to make it work. This is what it looks like when it does load. Click on In Production, then the purple Upload Audiobook button. Then scroll down the page. Make sure Audiobook Manager is selected. It is selected by default. Now you'll see purple Browse buttons. You can click on these to navigate to your audiobook files for upload. Opening credits is provided as like an upload section, which I didn't realize. So this pull-down menu on the right, labeled Action, has various options including Delete, which I use to get rid of the redundant opening credits that I created. Notice that you can also use that menu to reorder uploaded chapters if you need to. When I first tried to upload my audio files, I discovered that the upload format is MP3, not WAV. That's easy to fix. Just open up your final draft audio files in Audacity and export them as an MP3 file. I selected the highest quality. Make sure the metadata is all set up correctly at this point as well. Then complete the export. Let me be clear. You do not want to be saving your audio files to MP3 before this final step. MP3 is what's known as a lossy format, meaning that the quality is reduced in order to shrink the file size. Finally, you can go back to ACX and upload your MP3 files. The opening credits are quick because they're short. Chapters take longer. You can upload more than one simultaneously though. The total length of the production is updated at the top as you add in more audio files. After uploading all my files, I uploaded my cover art. You can see the cover art requirements here. Do not just upload your book cover. It will not be in the right format. The main thing is that the image needs to be square rather than rectangular. Lastly, I clicked Audio Analysis. It tells me I have no problems. Great. Then I click I'm done. Approve. The book shows as in review. I get a confirmation message, and that's it. Within a week, the book will appear on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes. For the opening credits, I kept it simple. I did title, copyright, and dedication. So basically it starts off, Crew of Exiles, written and read by Neil Holtschulte, copyright 2022, dedicated to, and so on. You need to select a retail audio sample, a little preview that people can listen to decide if they want to purchase your audiobook. It needs to be between 1 and 5 minutes long. I went through and just tried to select a clip that was interesting, dynamic, and didn't contain any spoilers. So the other place that I need to set up an account is Findaway Voices. Sign in. I'll do my author profile later, so I click past that. Click Start Your First Audiobook. Findaway also has a system in place to connect authors with narrators, as ACX does, but I'm scrolling past that down to Upload My Files. Put in the title, read and accept the legal agreement, fill in some more information, including the cover art. You can add in supplementary material like maps for fantasy novels. I have no idea how that works with an audiobook, but there it is. For the book description, I literally just copied what I had up on Amazon. I filled in my, quote, publishing company, which is not really a company, and the same publishing company I used for my ebook and paperback. I've brainstormed keywords many times over, so I filled in these with general stuff like science fiction and adventure, alongside some more specific ones like post-human and singularity. I use the same 2 BISAC or BISAC codes as I did for the ebook, sci-fi action adventure, and sci-fi post-apocalyptic. When filling out the information for Findaway, I got confused about the ISBN number. ACX doesn't even ask you for one, and Findaway lets you enter your own, but if you don't, they just fill one in for you. Now, when I originally set up my paperback and ebook versions of my book, I bought a packet of 10 ISBNs. Like 8 of which I'm not even using right now because I got one for the paperback, one for the ebook, and that's all I need. So I had one available to use on my audiobook. But it turns out that after you submit the project, you can't change the ISBN without deleting the whole project and going back through the process of uploading all your information and uploading every single one of these lengthy audiobook files. I didn't do that. I don't know what sort of control that removes from me, what sort of ownership Findaway has since it's their ISBN and not mine, but it's something you might want to consider before finalizing your Findaway Voices information. You can't just go back and edit that one field. You have to delete the entire project. My recommendation is to use your own ISBN and avoid any future trouble, but that's not what I did because I was exhausted at the end of this process and I wasn't necessarily making all the best decisions. Anyway, moving on. Fill in the copyright information. Set the retail price. You'll see that I just took the suggested values and skipped the add launch pricing options. Do not be lazy like I was. This is your opportunity to have a small amount of control. Take it. And regardless what you set your pricing to, do enter launch pricing and make sure to set an end date. You can't go back afterward and change these options, which I did not realize, and it affects your ability to set up promotions later on. What you set the values to is up to you. Save changes at the bottom, then scroll all the way back up to the top and click the Distribution tab. At time of recording, there are 45 different distributors that are available to you through Findaway Voices. I selected all of them except Audible since I was already distributing to Audible through ACX. I don't know if selecting Audible here would have caused any conflicts, but I figured better safe than sorry. Distribution finished, I went to the Audio tab, which gave me a not found error. Okay. The Overview tab is just what it sounds like. I clicked through the icons on the left side. You can see here what it looks like to hire a narrator. The interface actually looks quite nice. The person icon is account settings, which I did need to fill in, so I did so. I'm going to speed through this step. I filled in my bank account information, tax information, which I'm of course hiding for security reasons. It's straightforward. For the bank, you need to know your account number, your routing number. For the tax information, I really only needed to know my business status, which is individual/sole proprietor, and social security number. Finally, back to the round red record button in the upper left. I'm ready to upload my audio files. The file format is again MP3 like it was for ACX. Upload opening credits. I skipped front matter because all that content was already in opening credits. It's totally fine to skip that. Body matter is where the chapters get uploaded. I had to change the chapter name after each upload to match what it was on ACX. Otherwise, the chapter name will be based on the file name, which is not what I wanted. Skipping ahead, I've got everything uploaded, all the chapters now, as well as ending credits and the retail sample. Click Continue to final review and submission at the bottom. Review your content, then set a release date and a street date. If your audiobook has never been sold before, then these will be the same thing, which is what I selected. Then they give you this warning that basically says the distributors are going to release your audiobook whenever they feel like anyway. Do we feel empowered yet by this process? Back to the top, click Review and Submit, then scroll to the bottom of that page and click Submit for Publishing. It says you can expect to see your book at the distributor sites in 20 to 30 days. They are not kidding about that. It was 29 days later before my audiobook was available. But at that point, I'm finished. Everything is up on the 44 distributors I selected through Findaway Voices, as well as the 3 big distributors through ACX. The ISBN number wasn't the only part of the process that really frustrated me. There was a surprising amount that was not in my control, even though I'm literally doing this all myself. Like, there's no publisher, it's me. For example, the Crew of Exiles audiobook is $24.95 on Amazon and Audible. I mean, they're the same thing. But on iTunes, it's $16.99. Is the Audible price too high for you? Is the iTunes just right? Would you rather it be lower? Too bad, screw you. I don't have any control over the price of my audiobook. There's a webpage here where you can see how audiobook pricing is set. It's based on the length of the audiobook. My audiobook is 10 hours and 53 minutes long. Suppose at this point you want to set some promotional prices. You can do this through Findaway. First, you need to make sure that there is an ending date and launch price set. You actually can't do a promotion unless that's set. So make sure when you were going through your original process, you set dates for those. I didn't end up filling those in because I figured I wasn't going to do a launch promotion. Maybe that was a mistake on my part. I don't know. But do make sure to fill that in because it'll kind of come back to bite you later on if you don't. And then you can go through a link, create promotional price here. Promotions can only be set up for Apple, Barnes & Noble, Chirp, and Spotify. And each of these places sort of has their own process for doing it. You can find out more under Promotional Pricing Tool, which is found under the Marketing tab. Lessons learned over the course of this process. As I practiced reading and editing, both of those things took me more time at the end than they did at the beginning, largely because my standards had gone up. However, the quality also went up significantly as well. Doing it right the first time will save you time in the long run. So hopefully you are looking at online resources. I'm trying to create this video as one of those resources to show you all of the considerations that you need for this process. I hope it has been useful to people. But you also need to acknowledge that you aren't going to do everything right on the first try. You're gonna need to scrap whole chapters and re-record them and re-edit them. Be mentally and emotionally prepared for that. It is a long, slow process. Repairing those breathing noises is tedious and mind-numbing, and it's honestly what took me the majority of the time during this whole endeavor. Take breaks, be nice to yourself. The audiobook process is not easy, but neither is writing a book. I hope I have provided valuable information to you. If I have, and you would like to say thank you in some way, may I recommend purchasing a copy of Crew of Exiles. Check out the audiobook. See how the quality sounds to you. This is how I did it. You can compare and see for yourself, hey, is this good enough for my audiobook? Or purchase an ebook or a paperback. If that's too much to ask, there's always like and subscribe. Good luck, good reading, and don't forget to check this video's description for lengthy notes describing this process and lots of useful links to web pages and other videos that I found helpful, and hopefully you will as well.
Beryl felt a thrill of childish glee as he entered the bowels of the ship. He had a secret, and there was a perverse joy in teasing Fife with it. She called out behind him, "What the hell just happened?" He ignored her, stepping into the corridor that extended from the hatch. The walls were hexagonal, identical in almost any gravitational orientation. Warm light seeped through semi-transparent paneling,
like a flashlight shining through the palm of a hand. The ship was still alive. Nothing so crude as a severed wire could prevent power from reaching from one end of a post-human's ship to the other. And that was certainly what this was. He'd recognized the hodgepodge accumulation of modules on the outside. The fact that his touch pattern on the hatch had worked confirmed it. The ship was the abandoned body of a transcendent being. Someone more poetic might have said that the soul had abandoned the flesh, even though the flesh was not yet dead. Beryl would not have said so. Fife caught up. "What was that?" she demanded. "I opened the door," he said plainly, schooling his smile while his face was still turned away. Fife edged past him, blocking the way forward. "How did you open it?" she asked, eyebrows angled with playful anger. She was enjoying the mystery as much as he was, which spoiled his fun, so he ended the game. "I recognized the ship as a pH vessel. There are old physical codes built into the hatches. This ship is a cocoon. The occupant has completed its metamorphosis and moved on. Sorry to disappoint," he said, not sorry at all. "You won't find any ravenous aliens to fight here." Fife didn't look disappointed. Her lips curled up at the edges. Her arm shot out, wedging her body across the corridor, preventing Beryl from getting past. She arched an eyebrow inquisitively. "pH?" Beryl cleared his throat. "Post-human. I know the code because I used to associate with their type." Her eyebrows danced their intrigue. "I know what a post-human is, and I know that no one merely associates with them.